frustrations because welcome to, this is the third edition of the first ever Vlog on a Blog. Here we are vlogging, which means we're talking about a blog, this being the Facebook page. We did Facebook, then X, and now back to Facebook. X has become essentially unusable since it was recalibrated under the most recent Grok gift, where rather than seeing your feed be filled with the people you're following, and therefore your choice as to what you see and react to in your feed, it's now Grok determining what it is that you should see. And I would say the last 2 weeks since that change was made, I have found X to be a complete and utter waste of time. Not only the things that I'm posting and not seeing, but the things that I'm seeing are religious trash, political trash. It's just, a cesspool of humanity now on X. So at least we have a decent environment. In fact, they're all dressed up to kill here in our first post on Facebook. Yeah. I do have a bone to pick with you. You used the excuse of a funeral to miss our vlog on the blog last week. Isn't that correct? Yeah, it wasn't even your own.
No, it was not. No.
So it wasn't your own. I'm not sure if that excuse is going to fly, but nonetheless, it's good. It's good to have you back. This first post is interesting. We talked just briefly about it before the program began. This is George Clooney and his wife. And what's interesting about it is just how lost liberals are. She not only is the daughter of a Islamic terrorist, Hamas, arms smuggler. She worked for and with the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the springboard from which Al-Qaeda and so many of these Islamic terrorist organizations have sprung. It's the Muslim Brotherhood, and yet they present themselves all smiles and so sophisticated and so enlightened, and here they're working for people who are disgustingly murderous, and in the case of the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, who denigrate women. I mean, there has never been a religion or any ism in the history of the world that has degraded women to the extent of Islam, and yet these libertards will align themselves with it so long as they can demean Jews. What in the hell's wrong with them?
Yeah. It's unbelievable. She couldn't wear that outfit anywhere where Islam is a major religion. You know, she can't do that in Egypt. She can't do that in Iran, in Jordan even. Yeah.
No. Saudi Arabia, no place.
Right.
In Islam, women have less rights than domesticated animals. I mean, when Muhammad bragged about traveling to meet with Allah, he had to go through, of course, Jerusalem. Which that was his fanciful stupidity, where he claimed that he rode a winged ass, and asses don't have wings. I'm not sure they fly either, but that he rode the winged ass from his bed where he was sleeping. At the time, he was 66 years old, and his sex toy was 6. So he won a 666. There you go. And he jumped out of bed to go to meet with Allah. But to do that, he had to go to Jerusalem. Unfortunately, he didn't know the name of the city. And he said he met in the temple with all of the Jewish big shots, all of which had been dead for anywhere from hundreds of years to centuries. And, of course, the temple didn't exist either. It had been destroyed 600 years previous. He got all of his facts wrong. But, in religion, facts don't matter. So, what the heck. Right. And he had to leap up from Jerusalem to get to Allah's paradise, which means you can't get there from the Kaaba. He had to go from Jerusalem to get there. And on the way to meet with Allah, he actually had to go through hell. the first step.
Right.
When the
Right.
the winged ass leapt up from the Temple Mount was to visit Allah, and it was in hell. And when he went into hell, the reason for the story is he said that the majority of the inhabitants were women in hell. And he was asked, so why were the majority of the women in hell inhabitants? And by the way, he said that they were all hanging from their breasts with meat hooks through their breasts.
Yeah.
Really a lovely, lovely place. He said because they were not grateful to their husbands.
Right.
And this
Not
is
grateful.
the religion that these two libertards are promoting. It's a race too. We've talked briefly about this, but in the history of isms, the two most deadly are represented in this post. Islam.
Yeah.
Islam has killed right around 300 million people. The first 200 million people that were killed by Islam were killed in the first 100 years of the religion. At the time, they murdered 1/3 of the Earth's population. So this was within 100 years of Muhammad's death. The first Muslims murdered 1/3 of the Earth's population, and another third they enslaved, plundered, and raped. This is the most murderous religion ever conceived by man by a huge margin. I mean, by a factor of hundreds of times. And the only thing that competes with it is Marxism, which is what these libertards don't want to admit that they are influenced by, but it's progressives are Marxists. And Marxists have killed about 150 million people in the last 100 years. So these are the two deadliest isms that have ever been conceived by man, and here they are locked together. That's when, university students are out there and they're protesting for Palestine will be free and kill every Jew. Yeah, it's Marxists unified with Muslims. It's a exceedingly toxic and deadly combination, and this picture of it being glamorized in Hollywood, and it's just stunning. And as I say, George Clooney was just doing a liberal talk show, and one of the things he said, "Oh yeah, Amal, she was working with the Muslim Brotherhood." Just made it in passing.
Wow.
Didn't even register in his mind that, well, maybe that's not good.
Yeah, that's maybe I shouldn't say that, or yeah.
Or maybe
Who's
I
gonna be
shouldn't be
impressed
married
by
to
that?
a woman who worked for the Muslim Brotherhood. Maybe that's a really bad idea. Or that it's complete hypocrisy to pretend that you're interested in women's rights, children's rights, anyone's rights when you're working for the deadliest cult in the history of humanity. And the most...
peace in Africa and feeding African children and all these other ideas that, let's get rid of the Islam in Africa first. Yeah,
Yes.
maybe we can feed people.
Maybe. All right. So what do we have next there, my friend? Oh boy, what an absolute unmitigated disaster. First of all, we may see it in a future post, and if we do it, we'll skip over that one. But a poll was taken recently that says that 60% of Americans are in support of using the U.S. military to take out these drug-running boats. 60%.
Wow.
Now, let me make this really clear. America does not have a drug supply problem.
Sure.
America has a drug addiction problem. Nobody seems to remember Prohibition. When they outlawed the supply of alcohol, it didn't change the desire to demand for alcohol one iota, and so all they did is make alcohol more dangerous, more expensive, and made organized crime very profitable.
Yeah.
That's all that was accomplished. That is all that is being accomplished by making drugs illegal. Drugs should be legal, and they should be known for their harmful effects. If you're dumb enough to use drugs because your life is so miserable, then you have made a really stupid choice, but you're the problem as the drug user, not the supplier. So long as there is a demand, there will always be supply. And when you're dealing particularly with Venezuela, Venezuela represents 5% of the drugs consumed in the United States, and the boats that are in international waters would have to fuel 15 to 20 times to even get there. And so they aren't supplying drugs to the United States, and you're not saving one person's life no matter how many people you kill at sea. It is murder. You have no justification for doing it. And this notion that they're narco-terrorists, what a stupid thing to say. And the fact that there are MAGAs and others that believe that there is a narco-terrorist is just astounding. First of all, the people that are driving those boats, they did not make the drugs. They aren't even selling the drugs. They have nothing to do with the distribution of the drugs in America. They are providing transportation, and largely because America has destroyed the economies of those countries with its sanctions. We've made it very difficult to take care of people. And so they're mostly fishermen that either were blackmailed into it because they happened to have a boat, or they just, they took their daughter, took their wives, took a loved one, and they were blackmailed into it. A huge percentage of it happens that way. Or economically, they couldn't feed their family without doing this. So probably a lot of both, but they are the least deserving people to be killed in this process. And when you kill them in international waters and you pretend that they are narco-terrorists, they aren't narco anything, and there's not a single one of them that is a terrorist. Yet, terrorism is using a tactic that makes life unbearable when you don't want to prosecute your issue diplomatically or with standard military force. It's for
political
those
gain,
who have. Yeah, it's a tactic that makes resistance difficult. And so it is a tactic. For example, you can't have a war on terrorism because terrorism is a tactic. It is not a cause or a motivation. So these people are not are not motivated to harm the U.S. government. They're not there to take down the United government. They're not there to make life in the United States unbearable. They're transporting a product. Now, you may not like that product. I choose not to use that product. I rather like my life and my brain the way it is. But a lot of people, unfortunately, are hooked on drugs. But there is not one of those boat crews that are narco anything or terrorist anything. It's just an absolute unmitigated lie. And even if they were, and let's just say they were in U.S. waters, they were about to land and distribute their cargo, it would be illegal. In fact, it would be murder to kill them. You can arrest them, you can try them, and you can incarcerate them. But even if you arrested them and you gathered all the evidence against them and you tried them and you convicted them, you still couldn't kill them. Right. Killing them is just wrong. It is murder. To have 60% of Americans that can't figure that out, I mean, are they ignorant, they're irrational, or they're just immoral?
And if you can see them, if we can have drone footage of this, then you can watch them completely to where they go and apprehend them. If you can see them, you can apprehend them. There's no reason to,
You could have an EMP pulse that takes out the outboard motors. You can put crews there that take out the motors. You can do a lot of different things where you can then sink the boats and take these people into custody. But that's not what we're doing. International waters, killing them and justifying it. Now, the other thing that is so troubling to me, I happen to be a freedom-oriented guy. I think that everything ought to be legal and that there are good choices and bad choices, and you deal with the consequence of your choices. And in the case of drugs, I would make all drugs legal and all drugs stupid. But in terms of illegal drugs right now, do you know what percentage of Americans are hooked on illegal drugs?
Oh, easily 40%.
No,
wow.
25%, 75 million people. So you want to know where the problem is? The problem is those 75 million people, 25% of Americans. So, Mr. Department of War, you want to go and save lives? You figure out how to get that 75 million people off of illegal drugs. Now, if you add prescription drugs that are abused hugely in this country, alcohol, which is to the point that it is being abused, and nicotine to the point it is being abused, then the number goes above 70%. Now you have, what, in the range of, what, 300 and, well, excuse me,
70s,
225 million Americans that are consuming one form of drug to a risky level or another. So we're a drugged country. Now, you can fight this lots of ways. You know, my favorite way to combat it is a book like this, so that you can learn how you make your life meaningful, so that you can communicate with and get to know God and make your life worthwhile. That would be my first go. And I would make the distribution of drugs just like alcohol. It's legal. You tax it, and you use the monies collected from that tax to ensure not only is the drug safe to be consumed, that it's in the right dosage, but that also you're using all of the proceeds to help people get off of them. I mean, there's not a lot of people that, you know, are using drugs and say, God, that is so much fun. I just love snorting my house, my wife, my job, my kids, my reputation up my nose. I mean, that is just so really wonderful. I can't wait to be able to go do that. You know, help them get off of the drugs, and then you are winning. Whereas if you're trying to curtail the supply, then you're going to look like this clown here that has become a lying murderer. Mm-hmm. You know, he says, we're tracking them, we're killing them, we're going to keep killing them so long as they're poisoning our people. There's not a single one of those people driving that boat that's poisoning anybody. And we've literally become a nation of fools that will believe whatever is said. And politics has become poison for the mind.
And who's against drugs, right? Drugs are bad. So who's against drugs? So that's what 60% of the million, or 60% of the people that are okay with it, they just not thinking it through. You know, oh, it's drugs are bad. So of course, get those drug guys. They're bad. Drug guys are bad. That's all you have to know, right? Not thinking it's murder.
Yes, but since 70% of Americans are abusing drugs in one way or another, they're hypocrites.
Of course they are. As I drink my coffee.
Right, and my iced tea here. To say that drugs are bad is ignorant as well. Many drugs are extremely good, and some drugs are great. And it's the drugs that are counterproductive. It's not the drug's fault.
No,
it's the miserable life that tries to deal with their failure in life, because listen, we have created such a mess between social media and indoctrination versus education, that, and our economy being completely ruined, that people don't have any incentive. There hasn't been, we're going back to the conditions that YAHOWAH got upset with in the garden. You know, where YAHOWAH caused the fall of man in the garden because Adam was a deadbeat. He had showed no initiative. And that's exactly what is happening to the majority of Americans. They have no initiative. They don't work. They don't want to contribute. They think everything should be given to them. Their lives are meaningless, and then they go spend all their time online, where there is very little correlation between social media and reality.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think that we do a good enough job, and I'm all for helping people, don't get me wrong. I don't think we do a good enough job of making that circumstance of life uncomfortable. I mean, where folks that are homeless, they don't choose to be homeless mostly, okay? But the amount of resources that are put into making that lifestyle comfortable doesn't help those folks reach a bottom that they're like, something in my life's got to change, with all the resources that we throw at them.
We allow our cities to be destroyed because there's feces all over the sidewalk and drug needles everywhere. And people are just poisoned, and crime runs rampant because they have to steal to be able to make their to purchase the next round. We have, by coddling them, we have destroyed habitable places. And downtown cities, not long ago, I went to downtown Los Angeles, and I grew up there, and it's a trash can. It is, it's not even livable. And we've done that to ourselves. And so we have worked too hard in this country from the liberal side again, and I'm apolitical. I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't vote. I'm opposed to both main political parties in the United States and all political parties elsewhere. But the most liberal among us has pushed through policies such that success is punished and failure is rewarded. Mm-hmm. And so we give entitlements to people who have failed, and we take the money from the people who have been productive. And if you have a society that is rigged to punish success and to reward failure, you're going to get less success and more failure, which is why the country is bankrupt now. Why the only reason that we even have this appearance of not being completely bankrupt is because we're destroying the currency. We're printing money to buy things. It's the strangest thing that has ever happened in a society, because we became the reserve currency after the Second World War, and we have abused it to the point, like when we stole Russia's sovereign currency deposits, and then sanctioned Russia and threw them out of SWIFT when we were the ones actually that started the Ukrainian war. It showed the world that we can't be trusted, and so everybody has been fleeing dollars. And I don't know how they're going to fund the next $4 trillion that needs to be rolled over, because nobody wants the bonds, and the only thing it can do is either default or create the illusion of more money. But every time you do that, you destroy the value of the currency, and pretty soon you have to have wheelbarrows that to go buy a loaf of bread. And that's where we're headed. And we're headed that way because of this entitlement mentality that we've created a government that punishes success and rewards failure. It's why we don't make anything in America. You can't start a business that employs people that want to work, that you can trust to work, that you can afford to pay with the infrastructure surrounding it to make stuff in America anymore. It just can't be done. And it's the reason why America has become, just nothing but smoke and mirrors. But anyway, this whole thing is rotten to the core, and I'm disappointed in America for 60% supporting it. And the fact of the matter is, the whole thing was a smokescreen anyway. You aren't going to change the drug consumption and deaths in America, or the internal crime that is committed as part of the drug business in America, which is the vast majority of the crime in America is drug related, having nothing to do with the suppliers, having all to do with the distribution once it gets to America. And that being the case, if you were to drain the ocean, you aren't going to make a 1% dent in what we're experiencing, not a 1% dent. So this is all this man lying on behalf of his lying president because they're looking for an excuse to invade Venezuela. And they're looking for an excuse to invade Venezuela for two reasons. One is that America doesn't like the idea that any other nation is involved with any other nation in Central or South America. America believes that it is the total landlord of the world, and in particular, the Americas, and that everybody else has to stay out. Now, America has no problem putting NATO right up against Russia's borders and denying Russia of all security, and putting all manner of weapons and war equipment right up against Russia, and denying Russia everything under the sun, and trying to do the same thing with China. But if Russia or China tries to do that in the West, oh, no, can't have that. Mm-hmm. And so the United States has been trying to destroy Venezuela and get regime change, which never works. The United States has done 100 regime change operations since World War II, and none of them have worked. They've all been disastrous, and every time we've tried it, the country is left with many, many people dying, sometimes in the millions of people that are dying. And the same thing is true as Venezuela. That's what we've done. We've ruined the country. And now, with America being bankrupt, Trump is looking for a source of revenue to solve America's bankruptcy. So if you think that stealing from your neighbor is a good way to solve your debt crisis, then you ought to applaud and say, oh, well, that's just right. Nothing bad about armed robbery, is there?
Right. Not on this scale. It's only bad whenever it's person to person. I'm not going to go
Person
rob
to
my
person.
neighbor.
Oh,
But
okay. So
right.
when the government, when your tax dollars and 60% of Americans are, yay, 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 we're all favor that, then it's not armed robbery anymore just because you're using the military.
Right.
Oh,
That's the perception anyway.
that's where we are. It's all a lie because America wants to steal Venezuela's oil. And a lot of it has to do with it's very heavy oil in Venezuela, and the refineries in Texas and the Gulf Coast of America are all built for that very heavy crude. They don't work well on sweet crude, and therefore they need this supply. And because America tried to steal it and has been so belligerent in the Americas, it gave the opportunity for countries like China and Russia to come in and treat people decently. And so,
Sure.
Now a majority of their oil goes to China and to Russia and or distributed by Russia. And Russia and China are providing their economic stability and their defensive posture. It always plays against the belligerent. America has been obnoxious and belligerent to the point now where all of the roosters are coming home, and America is going to pay an exceedingly dear price economically and militarily for the belligerence that it has perpetrated on the world. I mean, we destroyed places like Libya. You know why we invaded Libya? It had nothing to do with Muammar Gaddafi and being a bad guy was the excuse. You know why we destroyed Libya?
So we could sell guns there.
No, wasn't there. That wasn't. That's why we destroyed Syria.
Okay.
No, Libya, because it was the most prosperous country in Africa, and Muammar Gaddafi had decided that it was appropriate for Africans to be released from the slavery that was imposed by the American petrodollar, and he had created a gold-backed currency that African nations could use to trade with other countries in the world so they wouldn't be held in servitude to America. And that's why he was killed. That brings me to the next one. You know, when back about a month ago when Trump was said, oh, my boy, we're big Americans, we're going to go and we're going to go save some Christians in Nigeria. You know what the actual reason was?
Well, it's got to be oil in Nigeria.
Nigeria had decided that because of what the United States had done, confiscating the sovereign funds of Russia and kicking them out of SWIFT for a war that everyone in the world other than Americans and Europeans know that NATO and the United States started, realized being held captive to this is bad for everyone. And so they were part of that group of countries that said, we'll sell oil in any currency. We won't limit it to dollars. And so the moment they made that announcement, that's when we came in the next day. Oh, we're going to go and invade Nigeria and we're going to save some Christians. You know why we didn't go into Nigeria and save some Christians? Because Russia and China says, if you do, you're going to find Russian defensive systems supporting the Nigerians, and you're going to find Chinese sanctions being imposed against you, and you can't survive Chinese sanctions. We played that game before. That's what happened. What happened there? It's when you mentioned Syria, the reason that the Syrian civil war occurred is that even before America went into Iraq and ruined Iraq. By the way, Libya, as a result of what America did, now is a living hellhole. There is no functioning government, no functioning economy. People are sold in the slave markets. It's hellacious what we did to Libya. Well, in Syria, before even the Iraq War, the CIA did its normal thing. The CIA cannot fathom that any country should have the choice of buying weapons from anybody but the United States. If you buy American weapons, America gets to control you. And if you don't buy American weapons, then you're not controllable by America. And the Assad regime bought Russian weapons. And so the entire purpose of overthrowing the Assad government wasn't because he was a bad guy. Yeah, he was a bad guy. No, it had all to do with they wanted the Russians out, and they wanted the Syrian government to buy American weapons. So when the Islamic State, which ultimately prevailed, which is the direct result of that guy's War Department, because the Islamic State is the U.S. awakening program in Iraq, another country we destroyed. And
JV team.
yeah, and so the awakening program created the Islamic State. And it is the terrorist organization that now runs Syria. And, you know, Trump is buddy, let's come to the White House. Oh, man, here, try some of my new cologne. Isn't this great? You're a handsome guy. What an attractive fellow. Writes him handwritten notes and said, you're going to be a great leader, and we're going to be there to help you. The United States is just morally bankrupt. Everything we do is disgusting. Look what happened when we led this civil war in Syria. Not only did millions of people die, those who didn't die migrated to Europe, and they destroyed Europe. We are responsible for the destruction of Europe based upon our CIA plot to overthrow the Assad regime. You look at Iraq. Bush blamed him for harboring Al-Qaeda, swore that Al-Qaeda was there when everybody who knew Saddam Hussein recognized that Saddam Hussein never tolerated an Islamic fundamentalist group like Al-Qaeda. He knew they were dangerous, and he knew they would kill him as soon as they'd kill anybody else. And he made Iraq a place where you could not be an Islamic terrorist. And so there was no Iraq or Al-Qaeda in Iraq, none. And he was actually going after the Kuwaitis and the Saudi Arabians, who were the source of Al-Qaeda. And then we blamed him for having weapons of mass destruction. And by the way, if he had, so what? Wouldn't it be his right as a country to have weapons? Doesn't the United States have weapons of mass destruction? But he didn't even have them. We justified crushing a country, killing millions of people on a lie. And then because of what we did and the fact Petraeus couldn't count, we gave the country to Iran, which fundamentally changed the Islamic world for the worse.
Yeah.
How in the world there are any MAGAs, any American patriots, it's astounding to me. I left America because the more I studied what we had done, the more that I came to know about America, the more disgusted I became. And I'm not a casual observer here. I knew presidents. I've had them in my home. I've been to their homes. Yeah. I've known many top-ranked senators. You talk about the kind of the ultimate boondoggle is when America intervened deliberately to overthrow the popularly elected government of Ukraine for the express purpose of using Ukraine as a proxy because we wanted to destroy Russia so that we could confiscate Russia's minerals. And John McCain led that. John McCain was a friend of mine. I knew him quite well. On my airplanes, I was in his home, even my home, the office. We spent a lot of time together. I knew him very well. And after our time together ended, he went off and he did this. He started that war. And look what's happened. 2 million Ukrainians dead. Country is ruined. It's a rump state. And we blame Russia for what we did. The United States is despicable. That's just the bottom line here. And it's going to come home to roost. So, Mr. War Department, with all your little tattoos and your alcoholic problem, and you think that you're defending our people, you don't represent me, I'll guarantee you that. And anybody that thinks that clown is a decent human being, you're not a decent human being.
Yeah. Can you read?
Yeah, this is a point, a sub-point on the point. What this is saying, this is a gentleman from the House Armed Services Committee. He has actually seen the unclassified or the classified video of the double tap, which was particularly reprehensible. We blew up a boat in international waters. There were 2 survivors. They clung to the side of that vessel for over an hour, and then we issued an order to go kill them. That is a war crime. It's murder. And We've now had Hegseth admit initially, proud that he did it, saying, yeah, kill them all. Then when he found out, well, that's murder, and I can go to prison for that. Then he changed his story and said, no, I didn't do that. And then in a cabinet meeting, he says, I'm a busy guy. What do you think I'm doing, sitting around all this time and watching this kind of stuff? No, I'm too busy to be involved in that. I saw the first part of it, but I'm too busy to have watched the rest of it. Too busy to oversee murder. Then then his next excuse was fog of war. Yeah, okay, maybe you got me, but fog of war, But there was no war. We haven't declared war on anybody. There's no war.
Fog.
Nobody was shooting at America.
We have it on video.
Nobody was shooting at America. I can guarantee you that. Nobody was shooting at America. There's no fog of war here. Right. So another just complete lie, and yet people don't hold him accountable. And then they finally released the videos, and he comes up with, well, let's bring the admiral that is overseeing all of this and let's pin it on him. Let's have him say that, no, Secretary of War, no, Trump and Hegseth, no. It was all me. I'm the one that gave the order.
Downhill, yes.
And so, the shit all rolls downhill. So he said, I'm responsible, except guess what? The video evidence doesn't substantiate anybody being responsible other than Hegseth. They're all lying.
Wow.
It's a really dark day for America. And, I'm sorry if you're a patriot and you believe that your country is wonderful and that your economy is the best in the world and that you're a nation of peace and all of this, but it's just not true.
Yeah. More Islam coming home to roost.
Yeah, well, this is the MAGA deal. So, there was a National Guardsman that was killed, and, I am completely opposed to the U.S. deploying National Guardsmen or troops in U.S. cities for political purposes or for law enforcement purposes. That is not the purpose of either of those two organizations. They're not trained for that duty at all. It's a policing function, and either you're going to police your cities or you're not going to police your cities. But the moment you send in troops, then you are dealing with the brown shirts and the Gestapo in Germany. And then if you augment the troops with this hugely growing massed ICE contingent, where they come in unmarked cars with unmarked people wearing masks with guns and throwing women and children to the sidewalk and trampling people's rights, and you do all of these things together, and a National Guardsman gets killed, then I'm going to tell you, I'm not crying for that individual. I'm sorry. I'm sure he has a family and friends and all that sort of thing, and it's a shame that he got killed, but he should not have been deployed. And, of course, the person that killed this one happened to be an Islamic man, came from Afghanistan, and the CIA even admitted that he was in their employ. So
really?
we have no judgment whatsoever as a country. We don't understand Islam at all as a nation. And so this idiot who is a MAGA person wants to have everybody bemoan the death of a National Guardsman who never should have been where he was, killed by a Afghani Muslim terrorist who the CIA and others were responsible for bringing into this country, never should have been here. And we should not be a sanctuary for a religion that is as deadly as Islam. And Islam has always been deadly. It's never going to change. The Quran is a death wish. It's genocidal for humanity. I mean, Allah says that all Muslims must have either died already killing for him or will die killing for him. There's no other option in Islam. So then they compare that to say, but it's moral. It's moral to kill these people in these boats. No, it's not. No, you don't know anything about them. You have no right to go in international water and just murder people. And then they'll say, well, Obama did a bunch of that. Yeah, he did. So did George W. Bush. So does Trump. So did Biden. American presidents think they're God. They think they can go and kill anybody they want to kill whenever they want to kill them because they want to kill them. the fact that one guy is no worse than the other guy means that they're all horrible. So don't
Absolutely.
talk about morality here. This is what moral decay looks like? No. What moral decay looks like is MAGA. Complete and utter moral decay.
Yeah, it's okay when my team does it, but when your team does it, it's no good. Right. And then we reverse the roles, and all of a sudden it's not good now. Yeah. This you went on about Bush, Obama, Biden, Trump. That is the issue, just like you said. It is that the power that's given to one government to do these things. You know,
well over 10,000 innocent people killed by Obama with drones. Not a single one of them indicted. Not a single one of them tried. No case, no evidence, no nothing. Just we don't like that person. They say, well, they're a terrorist. Well, how do you know they're a terrorist? And
Right.
what gives you the right to kill a person that is practicing their religion in another country? Not a single person that Obama killed with those drones had killed an American. So no, it's not. It's just flat out murder. You can't do that kind of stuff and have the world respect you or even pretend that you aren't involved in moral decay, and it's on both sides of the aisle. And I think it's on both sides of the aisle largely because the United States at the highest level is run by a combination of folks like the CIA and NSA and the top generals of the military, and the leading industrialists, the bankers and the billionaires, and collectively that is the government, regardless of who you have in the well, we used to call it the White House, now it's the Gold House, trailer trash. But
Right.
you know, the last person who told them no, I'm not going to go to war with Cuba because you want to fake an attack. That's what they told Kennedy, is that we have it all set up, that we have this coup, that we're going to say that the Cubans came in and they invaded with some terrorists and they killed some innocent Americans, and that this will use as the reason to go in and invade Cuba. And he says, no, I'm not going to do that. A week later, he was dead. So I think that, that Trump has to know, even as stupid as he is, that the Ukrainian proxy war is lost. And he doesn't want to be the president that takes the blame and the war ends with a Russian victory while he's in the White House. So he wants to do anything to cause that war to end. But guess what? The military-industrial complex in the U.S., the CIA, the NSA, and the top military brass in the country, they don't want it to end. They want it to continue. It's their gravy train. And so you can't end it because they won't allow you to end it. And if you tried to end it, they'll kill you.
Yeah, you're surrounded by their Treasury Department protection. So, yeah.
One of the things that people don't understand, and we have this huge debate going on. I really can't call it a debate because there's nobody actually that knows the rules of debate anymore. But you have the left wanting to call anybody who is a centrist or rightist a fascist, and the right wants to call anybody that's liberal a communist. But here's the truth of the matter: Nazi Germany and Italy were both communist. They were both Marxist, actually not communist. They were Marxist regimes. It was the Socialist German Workers' Party in Germany, and Mussolini's party, and he himself was socialist. In a socialist society, power is concentrated in the government. The most important industries and banking and that sort of thing are nationalized. The government makes all decisions about how people live, what they can do and what they can't do. Total concentration of power. But in a socialist society, there is still private industry. Some ownership of homes and some businesses can still be privately owned, where in a communist society, there is no private industry. So communism is just socialism at the next step. Fascism is just socialism with different branding. Nothing changed with Mussolini or Hitler when they went from socialist to Marxist, other than the branding was a little snappier. You know, was a little better on the goose step. The uniforms and the insignias were a little more powerful, but the governments didn't change at all. The economic system didn't change at all. A Marxist and a fascist economic system and form of governance are identical, and that's what this fellow is saying, that fascism and National Socialism are the same beast. So, you know, if you want to condemn people for being fascists and you're a Marxist, you got, you know, three fingers pointing back at you if you're pointing one the other way. So I'm sorry, they are the same thing, and it's a sad thing that people don't understand that is the reality. And the issue is that the reason that Marxism, fascism, and socialism, and communism, the reason they all fail is because they concentrate power. And when you concentrate power, you take the individual out of the equation, you eliminate incentive, there's no reward now for hard work or success. And so in a capitalistic system, free enterprise, it is possible to end up with a concentration of wealth. But in a communist socialist system, what you're going to guarantee is a accumulation of poverty. So poverty will be equal as opposed to wealth being unequal. And that is really the difference in practice because of two factors. One is that humanity does not do well when in large organizations, it's gang mentality. The larger the empire, the larger the nation, the larger the institution, the worse it becomes. And so individuals can be good or bad. Institutions like religions and nations and empires are almost universally bad. So concentration of power is wholly corrupting for humankind. And second, when you take personal incentive out of the equation and you make it from each according to their ability and to each according to their need, you destroy incentive, and without incentive, there is no industry.
Yeah, coming off of Turkey Day recently, I think I read that the original issue was they were collectivists. When they got off the boat, the pilgrims, and they started their little plots, they were collectivists, where everybody's doing it all together for the community, and that's why they almost starved to death. And it wasn't until that next year that they're like, yeah, that's not working, that okay, you own this plot and you work your plot. There wasn't, everybody's working the garden, the fields and everything, and then divvying it out, and we can have a market and sell it, you know, that then the community started to thrive.
Yes.
So
yeah, individual incentive is key, and it's also key in our relationship with YAHOWAH, with God. You have to individually have the incentive to learn, to listen, to engage, to think, and to respond. And if you don't have the individual incentive and you want to go along with the group like the religious do, you're going to be wrong, and it's going to cost you your life.
Yeah. I don't understand the fasces. The fasces is still it's a bundle of sticks, right, with the axe head on top of it. So it's collective. And it's also the symbol that they have behind them in the Senate or in the Republic building. They have the fasces symbol, that Latin, Roman fasces symbol, right behind them, behind the Speaker of the House's podium and everything. And so, how do you not get that fascism is here? It's a part of the United States, has been.
New World Order on our currency. It's a debt instrument. Or look at what's happening in America that people are missing is that Donald Trump is der Fuhrer. ICE is nothing more than the Gestapo of old. Rather than Jews, they're hunting Hispanics, and the National Guard in our cities now are the brown shirts. And what Trump is doing with his arc, with his new ballroom, and if you look at his podium now, the podium now has the Roman Aquila, the Roman eagle. It's now all about building the Fourth Reich. We had the Reich of Imperial Rome, the nastiest, most vicious civilization ever known to humanity. It becomes the Roman Catholic Church, which is the most oppressive organization in human history. It then becomes Nazi Germany. Out of the Holy Roman Empire becomes the Third Reich of Nazi Germany, led to the deaths of 50 million people. And now Donald Trump is creating the Fourth Reich.
Yeah. It won't be long.
It won't be long.
Poor Pete being attacked.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much gone over this, but why is he being attacked for defending Americans? Because he's not defending Americans. He's indiscriminately killing people as a pretext to go to war. I love this. I think it was Leah that created these, and if she she just walked in the room, so if somebody else contributed to them, she'll share that. Okay, she did say that was her. She's done three. One is for Dode, the great ram, our returning king, the Passover lamb. One was of Yada as the bull, and the other is the great goat, the goat with Gab, with the gift of Gab, the glib goat, who is Elia. And it's done really manly. I mean, it's black and gold and with blood, because all of them shed blood for this cause. But this, you can see the blood drops up there in the corners. But Dode is the returning king. He is our savior. He is the Messiah. He is the Son of God. He is the basis of the Christian myth of Jesus, although Jesus also borrowed heavily from Dionysus. But the myth of a Jesus being crucified on Passover, being the Son of God, being a returning king, and being the chosen one, a shepherd, as a Messiah, all of that is because Paul robbed Dode, who is the real Messiah, Son of God, and Savior, of all of his titles and accomplishments to create that myth. This is the real McCoy. His name is Dode. For people that don't like it pronounced that way, that is the way that he wrote it in all of his own psalms. That's the reason. That's the way that YAHOWAH wrote it when he spoke of his son in the 89th Mizmor. That's the way it was written all the way up through the 6th and 7th century BCE. It was only after that, and the few prophetic books and the writings that were written after that time, that they added a yod after the wah and the daleth, and became doed. But the verbal root is Dode. It means beloved, and his name is pronounced Dode. And there is no V in Hebrew, and there's no source of the id in the name until centuries after Dode's life. My guess is, I'm just going to go on a chance here, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, that when Dode wrote the 100 Mizmor or songs, and he wrote the lyrics and he introduced himself as the author of them, I'm going to, and we have copies of them in the Dead Sea Scrolls, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that he knows how to spell his name.
Right.
And he wrote it Dode. And 4 years after his passing, when the cornerstone was set for the home for Yahweh's name, called a temple, YAHOWAH inspired and wrote the 89th Mizmor, the single most important piece of literature in human history. And in it, he mentions that the name of his son, the Messiah, the Savior, and the returning king is Dode, D-O-W-D. I think he probably knows how to spell too.
Yes. There's folks want to say that YAHWAH doesn't know how to pronounce his own name. and Dode can't spell his own name. So I have to disagree with them on all counts.
Yeah, I would disagree too with Paul and Peter, who said that Dode was dead and buried and excluded from heaven, so they could steal everything from Dode and give it to the mythical Jesus Christ. When Yahweh says, "Oh, he's right here with me," and he's coming back. It'll be on Yom Kippurim, which is the 2nd of October, 2033. He's coming back, and when he returns, he is going to be Elyon. He's going to be all things representing my influence, and his throne is going to be as brilliant as the sun in my presence. So I have a hunch that just maybe, sort of, when God says, Dode is my son and I am his father, that Dode's really not dead. Going out on a limb here.
Right.
Well, actually, it's okay to be at a limb because Dode is the Shemach, the
It's
branch.
the branch, right?
So it probably is okay out on that limb.
Right. A limb. How many books do you have to write to make it a limb? You know, how tall do they have to stand for when they go from a stump to a limb?
You know,
They're only 3 foot tall now.
I was introduced by Yahweh as the Choder, which is a stem. Dode is called the Shemach, which is the main branch. Dode is the tree of lives, and I don't care how many trees, how many limbs, how many branches, I don't care how much you try to add, you are never going to reach the level of that fellow right there. That is the epitome of humankind right there. Doesn't go beyond that guy right there. And you might as well get comfortable under his the shade of his branches, because he's the guy. There is no life beyond the one that we are living right now without what he did on Pesach, Matzah, and Makotim. So that's the guy.
I can concur with that one.
Yeah, see, we're having a 41 part B. That was funny. We actually had an island-wide power outage today, which is what happened. We were in the midst. We were 32 minutes into 41 of the Voice, which was a return to Mizmor Psalm 6, which I had spent an hour and a half in our previous show on verse 6:1, because verse 6:1 confirms everything I've been saying, that Dode is the Savior, that Dode is the one that God proved that it is possible for a man to live up to his expectations, that you don't have to be perfect in God's sight. As a matter of fact, he doesn't want you to be perfect because it wouldn't be interesting. He wants you to be reliable, wants you to be interesting, wants you to listen, wants you to be engaged so that you take initiative and you do stuff and that you become reliable. Dode is all of those things. Anyway, we got 32 minutes into our first program, which for a lot of people, that would be a long show. 30 minutes of talking like this off the cuff without notes, with just look into the camera and talk. That would be a lot, but it was, kind of a half a show for us. So when the power spike,
sometimes a quarter,
took down the connectivity, we came right back about 10 minutes later.
Yep.
And delivered another 30 plus minutes. And I'm here to tell you that if you missed on these last two shows on The Voice, now A and B in this last part, you missed something that's really special. It is the affirmation that what we're saying about Dode is absolutely true. There was no Jesus Christ. It was Dode who was here in his second of three lives. He fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, Makotim. He is our Savior. He is a returning King. He is the Messiah. He is the Son of God. He is the chosen one. He's the most interesting and important man who has ever lived.
Yeah.
All right, sir. So you have a CCCP there. My guess is that there aren't even 10% of Americans that even know what a CCCP is. Now, you've got a gray beard. My guess is you know.
Of a certain age. I know,
Yeah. And I'm probably, 500-600 years older than you are? Well,
maybe a little more.
Maybe a little more. A little more.
Which age are we taking?
Yeah, what day?
The moon's age?
Yeah, the moon's 4.5 billion years on it. The CCCP, I was there when there was a CCCP. I was there in 1974-75. I was there for 2 months during the time. My trip started in what was Leningrad, and it proceeded all the way across to Lake Baikal in Siberia, then even went into outer Mongolia, and then back, time on the Orient Express. I was accompanied, because of course this was deep into the period of the Soviet Union. So
this is before
CCCP was,
Glasnost,
Yeah, oh goodness, way before, yeah. 1975. And I was assigned because it was so unusual to have anybody be allowed from the West into Russia. That to even make the trip, it took a year's worth of planning. That's pretty hard to do when you're, I was 20 years old at the time, depending on whose timeline we're using. But it was hard to arrange being able to do this. And I was really adventurous, as a young man. I mean, I was super adventurous. And I was met by a KGB agent, and she was assigned to me the entire time. And we did the ultimate grand tour. I mean, it was like a Dr. Zhivago, where you're going across the Russian, the Great Plains and all the way into Siberia and coming back. And her name was, I'll never forget it, Natasha Gritskova was my KGB agent, and we talked about everything. But what was so interesting to me, being in Russia at that time, and I was also in communist China within a year of that time. It was at the first contingent of, which was 10 people that were allowed from the West into China after Nixon made it legal. So I was the first group. Right. I actually went in with Tenzing Norgay, which is a name that might ring a bell to a few people. He's the Sherpa that dragged Hillary up Everest. It's Tenzing Norgay. He's a hero in the Asian world. So it was really interesting to be there with him. And we were so unusual for Red China at the time that when we went into cities like Shanghai, there would be millions of people lining the street just to see us come down the street. In every community we went into, the Communist Party would throw these big bashes, because I was the youngest person by far. It was Gombe this, Gombe that. Man, I must have had 1,000 Gombe's over the time I was there. And I want to tell you, my impression then, and the same thing was true with Russia. The people are marvelous. We want to paint both as being boogeymen. They're just not. They're really lovely people. I did business for the next 20 years with the Chinese and the Taiwanese. I was opened one of the first enterprise zones when the enterprise zone concept was brought into China, which is what caused China to become the industrial leader of the world. And my trip through the Soviet Union, escorted by Natasha Gritskova, was this glorious festival of discovery, while also under the pall of human oppression. I learned firsthand just how horrible communism was. These people had no idea what a Westerner was about. All they had ever seen is propaganda. They had never talked with one. You'd go into a store there, and where you go into an American store, there may be 50 brands of toothpaste and every imaginable size, flavor, and dispenser. Mm-hmm. There's one, which is there sometimes, which you have to line up when the shipment comes in, or you won't get it. Of everything, deodorant, there is one, not hundreds. It was horrible how much they were deprived just in their ordinary lives. They didn't get to choose where to live. They didn't get to choose what they wanted to read. They couldn't choose where they wanted to go. They could not choose where they wanted to work. They had no freedoms in their lives. And what I noticed in both Red China and the Soviet Union is that because they were at war with religion, which later in my life I would also become at war with religion, but they replaced religion of pretend gods with religion of men. Yeah. And so in Russia, Lenin and Marx and Stalin, they were all chiseled. The depictions of them were as the Greeks and the Romans presented their gods. Right. And there was always, Mao's Little Red Book, and there was the sayings of Lenin and Stalin, and people had to memorize these. They sung their songs in the morning, glorifying these hideous, murderous, deceitful, counterproductive men. And so there were statues and billboards, and everything was just placarded by these four men, Mao in China but also in China, you also had Lenin and Marx, and in Russia it was Marx, Lenin, and Stalin, and you could not have three worse men. They turned men into gods, and so communism became the religion of man. Yeah. And the oppression and the poverty. When we went to places where they didn't even have indoor plumbing, and people were still coming to wells. They were still in donkeys. So there was a facade of a country that could send up a rocket with Gregorian and that could make an atomic bomb, but underneath it all, it was just total poverty. Now, I've been back to Russia many times. I've been in 175 countries, with about 225 in the world now. So I've seen most of the world. It puts me in a really interesting position to do a show like this. And I've been back to Russia several times since the end of communism. And Russia has blossomed like a pearl. It just budded out. It's a beautiful flower. Russia, is, for all that people have been fooled into believing that Putin is a boogeyman, he is about an 85% approval in Russia. They love him. Mm-hmm. And they love him because of the fact that he cares about Russians. And he cares about the values that are important to Russia. He is dedicated to defending Russians. And what Putin did that people don't like is that he did empower the oligarchs in the transition. But what he also did is, prior to him, the oligarchs already existed. And so the average business person running a shop would have to pay 6, 7, 8 oligarchs. Everyone was a bandit. You had, just like the mob, you had to buy insurance. Mm-hmm. And so there were 6 or 7 people, all wanted 10 to 15% of the revenue. And by the time you went through the 6th or 7th of them, there had nothing left. And so Putin streamlined it all down and said, all right, I'm going to be your oligarch. And I'm going to be the only one. And so we'll get along great. And it's no longer a burden for you. And you can be prosperous, and I'm going to encourage you to succeed. And he did. And they love him for it. And they also recognize that this war in Ukraine has nothing to do with Russia's aggression. The United States plotted this war 20 years ago and have done everything to ensure that this war would be fought, and then have armed the Ukrainians as if they were cannon fodder. We've allowed 2 million of them to die, destroying that country. We're going to abandon the country. And we did it all because we wanted to control Russia. I mean, those are the facts. Whether you want to believe it or not, those are the facts. And so it bothers me that the world has come to hate Russians and hate Putin when he is, in fact, so much better than the Americans and the Europeans that have, and the NATO folks that have promoted this war and have led to the deaths of so many. And, Putin is not running the Ukraine war as an all-out war. He wanted to protect the ethnic Russians that were in the East. They have all now, including the Crimeans, voted to be part of Russia. They are now sovereign part of Russia. It's no longer up for debate as to what they're going to be. That's what they are. They were harassed by the Ukrainian regime when the United States led the coup that overthrew the popularly elected government. And so they're never coming back. And, the next strike is going to be Odessa if this war isn't settled by surrender. And if the Russians take Odessa, then Ukraine is a landlocked rump state. And there's no fixing it. The most interesting thing that will happen after that, if it does occur, is the Suwalki corridor. You probably haven't heard a lot about that, but the Suwalki corridor is this strip of land between Poland and, I believe, Lithuania. There's a Russian territory on the Baltic there, but when the Soviet Union fell apart, and it gave up those territories, and therefore it has no conduit to get back and forth from the Russian mainland into the seaside community where they have a naval port and this sort of thing, and an ice-free port. And so the Russians are going to take that back, just a matter of time. And when they do, they will have split NATO, and NATO will probably want to invoke the Article 5, and it could be catastrophic. But, I'm here to tell you that Putin, who has been turning the other cheek over and over and over again and has been the least violent player in this war, who has kept the lid on this thing to the extent that he could. When Germany, France, and the UK and the United States started sending long-range missiles into Ukraine, putting in the targeting solutions and firing those missiles into Russia, it changed the calculus, and he's not going to take it. And if the consequence is he needs to blow up some American warships or some American bases or send off a tactical nuke, he's going to do it. So that's where we stand. You can't rape people and not expect them to respond.
Right.
Particularly when they have the largest nuclear arsenal in the world.
Yeah, it was all fine and dandy whenever it was damage the conflict stayed in Ukraine, but when refineries are starting to hit in Russia, airports are getting hit outside of Moscow of all places, it gets real. Then it's going to get real for Europe as well, especially if it's their munitions that are doing it.
The CIA and MI6 were the ones that coordinated the drone strike against Russia's strategic nuclear airborne fleet, and that's the ultimate. You can't be that stupid move. Mm-hmm. It should have triggered a nuclear response from the Russians. It was as dumb as anything, and this happened during the Trump presidency. He denied it, and it was impossible for him not to know. If he didn't know, which I think is impossible, then he's the most senile, useless piece of crap that's ever occupied the White House. But it was a CIA and MI6 operation. We put in all of the targeting information, and those airplanes were out in the open for a reason. That was what the treaty required, so that you knew they weren't flying and delivering nuclear warheads. Yes. They had to be out there in the open so the satellites could see them, and we had all the targeting information. We gave it to the Ukrainians, and they used it. Oh my God, we're stupid.
Yeah. Here's a fun one.
Yeah, this is kind of a fun one. Boy, there's so much unthinking as it relates to the creation of the universe. And of course, this is sort of an interesting shape. The universe is actually flat, so this shows it round, but it's flat. It could never have been flat if it was an uncontrolled explosion through a singular Big Bang. So that doesn't fit any models, but it is flat. Second of all, they have in this, I think it's the third or fourth input is speaks of quarks. Anything prior to quarks being confined, we might as well just not talk about it, because prior to quarks being confined, time doesn't move. Again, this is something that Einstein proved, and we know to be true, which is that time doesn't flow without the existence of matter. When there is just energy, as there was, and this has a singular Big Bang, that is not the case. There were countless Big Bangs. There were Big Bangs everywhere. It was the entire this void that YAHOWAH was going to start the universe, and he initiated these things everywhere. So the universe is such that we know it was not one Big Bang. This singularity which they have here didn't happen that way. We now know for certain there were many of these things, and time doesn't actually move, doesn't flow until quarks are confined. That is the point where energy has cooled sufficiently for it to form matter, and it begins to flow at that point. So anything to the left of quark confinement is a complete unknown to us, we are now with the James Webb Telescope able to see galaxies, very large, sophisticated galaxies that are in the range of 13.5 billion years old. And that's just the current depth away that Webb can see, if you will. Well, There's no possibility that in a matter of 500 million years that galaxies like this could have formed. Impossible. So the universe is older than this 13.8 billion years, and the 13.8 billion years is all based upon the residual temperatures that we're measuring and our guesstimate of quark confinement, because we don't really know the temperature of quark confinement. And they picked a temperature, they picked it at one extreme versus the middle point. If you pick the middle point, it's 15 billion years, which I think is probably the right number. And they picked one that limited it to 13.8, but they know now that the universe is older than 13.8 billion years. Now, 13.8 billion years, not from the point of creation of the universe, it's 6 24-hour days old from being there at creation, because in the presence of great energy or great velocity, which there was plenty of both, time slows. And we know the slowness of time relative to Earth time is 10 to the 12th power because of the microwave radiation that we can measure from the Wilkinson probe. So when you do the math and you take 15 billion years and you divide 15 billion years by 10 to the 12th power, you get 6 24-hour days.
Okay.
So creation time of 6 24-hour days and 15 billion years Earth time, which wouldn't even exist for another 10 billion years after the Big Bangs, they happen to be exactly the same number. And scientists know that the same number. The average person doesn't, so they're still having this argument when there really should have been no argument at all. But it is really interesting. We have launched an instrument that has told us that our textbooks are wrong about everything. It's one of the things too, but science still can't give it up. They'll still say, it's 13.8 billion years old, but they know it's not true. And they'll still talk about the Big Bang and the singularity, and they know that's not true anymore. It's the same thing with macroevolution. Because microevolution is true, finches have different shapes of beaks depending on the places that they have lived. But there is no proof of macroevolution. The 35 types of animal body types that we see today, there's 35 types. All 35 types came onto the scene all at the same time. They didn't evolve from one to the other, all at the same time. And all of it was right after the Earth's atmosphere cleared enough to animals by having plants create oxygen, and it cleared the Earth's atmosphere, and we stopped having constant volcano eruptions and constant meteor impacts. And so the Earth's atmosphere cleared to the point where plant life on land was possible. It cleared the atmosphere more, and then all forms of animal life all came to existence within a period of about 300 million years. And what that means is that the theory of macroevolution, which says that, okay, so it really is impossible for life to emerge from non-life. I've used the example of a tornado going over a junkyard and producing a flyable 747 and saying that actually has a much higher likelihood of happening than life from inorganic material. And what Nature, the primary scientific magazine, finally had to print a retraction and say, now that we have proof that all 35 forms of animal life were conceived at the same time, our theory that yes, it is highly unlikely, if not viewed, they would even say impossible, for life to emerge and by random chance, given enough time, billions of years, the impossible becomes probable. And now they know that there wasn't enough time. And so it wasn't possible. And now, knowing that, their next excuse was, well, it came in on a comet. Came in on an asteroid or a meteorite. And of course, now it's got to be able to stand no oxygen, no water, freezing conditions beyond our imagination, and then heat beyond our comprehension as plasma builds up around it. And you want to say that's where you seeded life. And then you have this other problem. The Earth is so perfectly tuned for life. And when you realize all of the things that go into it and how fragile it is in that tuning, it is highly unlikely that there is life right now on any other planet.
Yeah.
I could go through for an hour and tell you all the things that have to be right and that are unique to this planet. And that's why when I say that, Elon Musk is convinced he's going to have millions of people live on Mars, I'm saying you're not going to have a single person live on Mars. You might have somebody die on Mars. If you have $1 trillion you want to squander, you can have somebody die on Mars. You're not going to have anyone live on Mars. And the same thing is true with the moon. You can get to the moon. It's it only is 3 days away versus it's a 6-day round trip to the moon with a 4 day stay. It's a long weekend or a long week's vacation. But you go into Mars, it's been a part of 3 years. 9 months there, 9 months back, and then you have to wait essentially 2 years for the planets to align properly. You've got just shy of 3 years, and the human body can't stand it. Our bones would disintegrate, our heart would stop functioning, our muscles wouldn't work. Without gravity, we die.
Who's the longest space? Who's the longest that's been on the space station? They come back and that's a few months, and they can't even walk.
That is correct. And our space station is shielded by the magnetic field of the world of our globe, and so you're still not exposed to cosmic rays there. But and even then they're spending quarter of their day exercising, and even then right. they can't really do the exercises necessary for their bones and for their hearts and upper body muscles and all that sort of thing. And so it is, it's really a serious problem. And there is no way anybody is ever going to go to Mars and come back and live on Earth. And the question is, why would you even talk about such a stupid thing? Because the only way you could survive, let's say if you didn't die en route to Mars, and that you actually got a spacecraft to land on Mars, and all the equipment worked on that spacecraft that could keep you alive on Mars, and you sent in all of the soil, because you can't use Martian soil to grow anything, all the soil, you can't get water, so you're going to have to bring in all the water and all the soil into Mars, and all the fuel to run your equipment, and all the backup parts, because if you lose something, it's 3 years to get a replacement. You're going to bring it all in.
Backup.
This only where you can live. They have all these, pretty domed, glass domed cities that you see in the pictures they want to believe. No, the only way you can survive on Mars is in a hole. Mm-hmm. Because of the cosmic rays and the temperatures and everything else, the only place that a human can survive on Mars would be in a hole, in a cave. So if you want to live in a hole, why not just dig a hole on Earth and you don't have any of the other problems?
Right. Well, then you're accused of having an elite bunker, so it's not as cool. If you do it on Earth, it's a bunker for the elite, and it's not as cool. Right.
Okay,
but on Mars, it's a pipe dream, and we can get people to invest in it. We're all going to Mars.
I was a guest many times at the Greenbrier, and one of those times it was the Greenbrier. I saw the elitist bunker, which was finally given up because we have another elitist bunker, so that the top echelon of America has their elite bunker with all the fine foods and chefs and quarters, so that when the nuclear strike happens, they can go into their bunker, and the rest of us, we just die. Well, I won't, because I opted out. I moved out of the United States. I said, no, I don't want to be part of this anymore.
Right. The worst part about a bunker is the company, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
it's always better to have your own bunker.
You and my wife are introverts, and Rich here, he's an introvert too. He won't even turn on the lights over there now. He's just hiding out.
I'm in the background watching everything. Got a good
I've
stream.
seen Leia walk back and forth. She's another one of these introverts. You guys are going to have your own little bunkers, and I'm the social guy here. Although I will tell you that once we started the blog, and we're doing this, eventually every day. There's now Rich will say, yeah, there's one day a week I beg for downtime. Even being an extrovert, you need a little quiet time.
Yep. All
right, what do we got next on that list? Oh my God.
Oh goodness, we can't listen to this, but
no, I swear. The people who were given more than anything. God wrote the covenant, offered the covenant through them, spoke to them in their language, revealed his Torah guidance for them in their presence, actually met with them. They were stupid enough to tell God to go away and shut up. We never want to see you or hear from you again. And the God who's done everything for them, gave them a homeland, freed them from slavery. And they spit in his face. And then they pretend with their little curly cues and their funeral attire that they're the ones speaking for God. In fact, there was a rabbi that said the only reason Mashiach is going to come back is we're compelling it. And our devotion to it is what's going to cause it to happen. And
Yes.
God's really clear about this. He despises them. God hates Judaism with a passion. There will be no advocate of Judaism who's going to survive Yahweh's return. Not one. He hates religion in particular, but Judaism is his least favorite because of what it's done to his people. So all of these buffoons singing and jumping up and down. By the way, do you see any women in these scenes?
No.
No. It's all
Never.
men. Yeah, it's a repulsive religion created by repulsive people, and it is unbelievably stupid. And until Jews realize that being Jewish ethnically is a really good thing, and being Jewish religiously is a really bad thing, and they don't need the bad thing to enjoy the good thing, and we have Jews that become Yehudim again, and embrace Yahweh, and break out of this terror trap that is Judaism. I mean, with its kosher diet, there's no kosher in the Torah. There's no we're going to wear yarmulkes in the Torah. There's no we're going to dress in black in the Torah. There is no we're going to have little curly cues in our hair in the Torah. Or there's no we're going to eliminate Yahweh's name in the Torah. There's no phylacteries. There's none of this stuff. And they're about ready to celebrate Hanukkah. There's no Hanukkah in the Torah.
With our
But
nine
the
candle
rabbis
menorah. Yeah.
dominate the whole culture.
No. Rabbis created Christianity, which turned out to abuse Jews for better part of 2,000 years. It was Rabbi Paul. He created Christianity. It was rabbis that created the religiosity of the Quran. Without the rabbis selling Muhammad stories, you never heard of the Quran, you never heard of Muhammad, and the world would be infinitely better off, particularly Jews. Rabbis are a plague. They're a curse on the planet, and particularly on the Jewish people. All right.
Some more.
Zohar. The Zoharis want to tell you that they have a science. Are you familiar with the Zohar?
Briefly, not in
Okay.
any sense.
The Zohar
study,
was
no.
written in Spain in the 12th century. It is integrated now into Judaism, where there's almost no separation between Kabbalah and Rabbinic Judaism. Although the form that is practiced in Israel is the Hasidic, and the Hasidic Judaism was created in the 17th century. And of all places, it was in Ukraine is where Hasidic Judaism was created. So it is one of the world's newest religions, and it is almost as oppressive as is Islam. But in mainstream Judaism, Kabbalah is a huge aspect of it. The textbook, the scriptures of Kabbalah, called the Zohar, and it is a spiritual argument between good and bad, and it's really way out there in craziness. And they want to redefine everything. They want to redefine what a soul is, and that is one of these things. They want to redefine right and wrong, good and bad. It's a trip almost like you were on acid, is what Kabbalah is. And so my comment here is that the Zohar is actually a vessel that is filled with lies. And that if you believe it, your soul will be extinguished at the end of your life. That's what it will do to you. And if you promote it, well, then you're going to spend your eternity in Sheol. This is a really horrible disease, this Kabbalah and the Zohar. It's a shame on rabbis for creating it, and it's so obviously untrue. It is marketed today very much like Scientology is marketed. You know,
It's
so
all in the mysticism, yeah.
Yeah, it's all in the mysticism. Elon Musk. I recall when I first got involved in social media. I mean, Yahweh had talked with me one day and said, "I want you to do this." And I said, "Okay, well, what's a vlog? I'm happy to do one. What is one?" Well, you get these cameras, you get these lights, you get these people are going to come to work with you, and you're going to do a vlog. I said, "But wait a minute, aren't those, pimply-haired, faced young kids still in mommy's basement doing vlogs? Aren't those the influencers? I mean, come on. I don't want to be a Kardashian. This is ridiculous. And I'm an old guy. I do translations. I write books. No, you're gonna do a vlog. Look at all your books. Do you think that you're gonna make a real difference in the next 2 years that we have left by writing more books? Or do you think you'll make a difference if you turn on the cameras and start talking to my people? You don't argue with God. He's too much smarter than we are. Plus, he wrote a bunch of prophecies about how we were going to vlog, so he doesn't like his prophecies not being fulfilled either. So it wasn't an argument that we got into it. Just, okay, well, I'll be a vlogger, I guess. Elon Musk, when I started, it was a year ago now that began all of this. I had never posted anything prior to that, not a single word, not a single post. And at the time, Elon had not engaged in politics, at least overtly. I guess he had funded the Trump campaign in the swing states. But other than that, he was a businessman. And having run innovative businesses and taken several of them public, I knew how difficult it is that what he was done, what he did with Tesla and with SpaceX in particular, and what he was starting to do with the Starlink. I just thought, this is a marvelously inventive man. And I understand he suffers from Asperger's, which means he has an empathy disorder. But he has certainly taught himself what he needed to do to be at least empathetic enough to know how to run these businesses. And because he has autism, his brain was firing all the time, which means he could hardly sleep. So he just became a workaholic. And, he's one of those guys. The difference between the guys that are fabulously rich and the guys that are poor in business very often is that everybody works very hard if you're starting your own business. But the guys that are ridiculously successful they rolled sevens over and over and over and over and over again. And if you have enough people rolling dice, 1 or 2, 3 or 4 are going to have everything come up ideally for them. That's the big difference. And Elon Musk was one of those guys, and he matched that with industry and some intelligence. Give him credit for that. Then he went into politics. And when he did, I said, this is going to destroy him. It's going to spit him out and chew him up. Trump is a horrible human being. He's the Hannibal Lecter of politics. He is never going to tolerate Elon Musk, and he will devour Elon Musk and spit him out. And Elon Musk got destroyed in politics. And when it destroyed him in politics, it destroyed Tesla, because Tesla was a brand that was being sold like Apple. It was being sold on the kind of the ethos of it and the spirituality of this business and this businessman, and you couldn't distinguish between the founder and the company and the product, and it was a product that was the opposite of what it claimed to be. It's not environmentally friendly to have an electric car. They consume electricity, which has to be generated in the standard ways, and their batteries are incredibly caustic to our environment, and they're lousy values by comparison to other forms of locomotion. But he turned that thing into this cult following, and then he went into politics and destroyed it. And Tesla's market share has evaporated around. It's just evaporated, and his margins have evaporated around the world. And his great success was going to be the Cybertruck, and he has $800 million worth of inventory that he can't give away. And he has worse, he has factories designed to build them and can't build anything in them. And he has factories that build batteries, and the battery technology is about to go through a major evolution into a sodium-based battery. That's not what his plans do. He's in real trouble. And so what he started to do is to hype Optimus. Oh, AI and Optimus, man. That's going to be the thing, because that's where you're getting the high revenue. So he said, oh, Optimus is going to end all healthcare problems. It's going to end all work. It's going to end all poverty. It's going to give you everything, and it's going to be the best-selling product in human history. No, it's not. And at this point, the only thing that you can assume is that everything that Elon is doing has nothing to do with people, and it's all to do with the military. He has nowhere to go with SpaceX. We aren't going to put people to do and have a moon base. Not going to happen. The regula of the moon, the temperature swings, the 14 days of total darkness, and just the grittiness of that regula, the dust there, is not possible. And the cosmic rays and everything else, you can't build a habitat to survive it. There's nothing on the moon that would cause us to want to hang out there, and it's impossible. You could stay there 3 or 4 days and not die, but that's really the extent of it. And we're certainly not going to Mars, not to live there. So SpaceX has no place to go, so what does it exist for? Launch military satellites to launch weapons? And Optimus is not a practical machine. You wouldn't trust it to go out and walk your dog would be dead. You wouldn't trust it to do your dishes. They'd all be in shatters on the floor. You're not going to trust it to clean your house. Your furniture would all be broken. You're not going to buy, and he's talking about $25,000 a copy, and they'll be 3 times that by the time that he's actually selling them. And they won't be worth anything other than a conversation piece. I've got one. So the only reason that they're being funded and that they're being made, to fight, to enforce the government's crackdown on people, and to replace soldiers. That's what they're being created for. And Starlink is not to be this friendly force that's going to make every telephone in the world all of a sudden direct satellite and people can see everything. It might be a benefit, but it's a total control mechanism.
Sure, because you can turn it on and off, or you can regulate what is on it at any moment in time. Yeah. Correct.
The guy that's getting so much play right now on South Park that founded Plantaire, the spy company, was the principal funder of behind Elon Musk when Elon Musk had PayPal. And he was also the primary funder behind Facebook, which we're going through a Facebook site here. Teal is his last name, and he's the one that's shown on South Park with being very nefarious. That is the circles that he hangs in. He is now putting large data centers in Saudi Arabia to control information. And AI is deadly for humanity. Humanity cannot survive AI. We're not thinking as it is now. People don't exercise good judgment. AI doesn't think. It's not intelligent, but it is exceedingly controlling, and it is a crutch that so many people are relying on rather than doing the research and rather than thinking. We won't survive it. And he's a driving force in all of these things. And the man you're looking at there is a disaster. Now, what he's advocating here, he knows isn't going to happen, and he should not be in politics because he is really bad at it. But my point has been consistently true throughout the history of mankind, which is the larger the institution, the worse it becomes. So while France and England and Germany and Italy, Austria and Switzerland and Spain can be bad, collectively they're far worse.
Sure.
And so it is better for humanity to have governance be a much smaller group of people. The same thing would be true in the United States. We played this game before in the United States. We called it the Civil War, What we determined was that you were free to join the Union, you were not free to leave the Union. We'll kill you if you want to leave the Union. But if we had 50 separate countries that all did, business with one another, we would be far safer and far more prosperous and far freer than we are with a collection of 50 states. So Europe would be better off broken down into individual components than it is under the EU. So his statement is right, but there's no purpose in making it because it's not going to happen. We might find that another country leaves the EU. The natural one to leave is Germany.
Yeah,
Germany has funded the EU, and it has lost its sovereignty to the EU. It's lost its economy to the EU. It's about to engage in a war with Russia over the EU. And the only sane thing for Germany is to leave the EU. And when Germany leaves the EU has no reason to succeed. And the EU is in a serious problem at the moment because, in particular, France is over. Mm-hmm. The French economy is non-existent. They can't pass a budget. Their deficit is at 125% of GDP. And no one will restrict entitlements. And so they're adding to it at a prodigious rate. Because they are not a reserve currency, they can't print their money way out of the debt deficit to postpone it like the Americans have postponed it. Now, Americans' reckonings is going to happen the next 3 to 4 years. America would be bankrupt. France is going to happen sooner than that because they can't print the money to get out of it. But at 125% of GDP, France, like the United States already, even at 3% interest rates, because interest with Japan and other countries and the Federal Reserve offering zero, essentially, bonds, yield on bonds, under 1%, money was free. So you just printed the money and so what? Well, now that debt has to roll over, has to be paid at 4 and 5% interest, and France, because it's less solvent, even higher rates. And so both in France and the United States now, the number one budget item is not defense. It's not Social Security. It's not Medicare. It's service of the debt. And that's going to double and triple over these next 3 or 4 years. So France is essentially gone, and that was the second biggest economy in Europe. And Macron has no control or no influence over it. And so what I'm telling you here, it's not my opinion. I can tell you that's just fact, that the United States and France are both going to go bankrupt.
Well, and then all the ones that go along with them, because with everybody being so intertwined that when a big boy goes and, oh, well, I'm not getting my influx of cash, I'm not getting my support from that little, then yeah, the little ones topple as well.
Mm-hmm. Religion. So at the bottom of this, it has a ode to Jesus Christ. So they're saying, "He who destroyed the wall of Jericho lives in you, and he will destroy any battles in your life. Amen." All right, well, let's begin with the last word I just said, amen. Amen is the name of of the sun god of ancient Egypt. Jesus, you know when Jesus first existed?
Jesus was first?
Jesus.
Yeah, that was somewhere in the 16th century, yeah.
Yeah, 17th century, 1629.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 16 in there, all right, but that's called the 17th century. 1629, third edition of the King Iam's Bible became the King James Bible at that
time.
Year
zero's a tricky one.
Yeah, that real tricky one. 1629 is when Jesus was first introduced to the world. So Jesus was not at Jericho, and there was no Jericho because there was no J until the 17th century. So we have that little problem right there. So the invention, though, of the character that became known as Jesus in 1629 was Iusu Christou. And Iusu Christou was created by Paul in 52 CE. There was no Iusu Christou who lived in the first century. No, Iusu Christou was not crucified. There was no Mr. Christ. There was no Mr. Jesus. There was no virgin birth. There was no Mary and Joseph. There was no little town of Bethlehem. There were no 3 wise men following a star from Babel.
Bethlehem existed.
Well, Bethlehem did exist, but oh, little town of Bethlehem, where this birth was supposed a manger there. No,
In the
did not
manger. Oh.
There wasn't even a Roman census to bring people in at that time either. There was no story of Herod killing all the little babies. There were no 3 wise men coming from Babylon. If they were coming from Babylon, they wouldn't be wise men. No, the whole story is a complete lie, and it was created by Paul in 52 CE. So the first mention of an Iousu Christou was in Paul's letter to the Galatians in 52 CE. Jericho fell in the 15th century BCE. So we've got 1,500 years that separate these events. So no, Jesus was not there to tear down the walls of Jericho. He does not live in you. Well, unless you're fond of having myths live in you, and you might as well have the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus if that's going to be your case. Now, what is a surprise to people is that, according to YAHOWAH, and I'm going to go out on a limb here again. YAHOWAH ought to know. He happens to be God. YAHOWAH said in his own voice through the prophet Isaiah, in the 11th chapter of what now is that book, that there is one man that has the spirit of YAHOWAH in him today. He is the Choder. He's also known as the tree of knowledge. And he is the only person. There is no other mention of anybody having the spirit of YAHOWAH in them at this time. So this person that you're trying to ascribe as a god, and by the way, God is not a man, and men cannot kill God, so Jesus could not have been a god. But the spirit of YAHOWAH, according to YAHOWAH, is in one man right now. Mm-hmm. He's the Choder. And if you're not the Choder, I'm sorry, spirit of YAHOWAH is not in you. But the religious will believe anything, won't they? Oh, by the way, when the walls came down, you do see the people blowing the shofars. But was there people raising swords there?
No, all we had to do was hike around. Yeah,
that is correct.
Hike around 7 times.
Yes, and don't loot it.
Right.
Don't loot it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what did they do? They looted it.
Right.
Shouldn't have done that. All right. We'll do a couple of more, and then I think we're at an hour and 45 minutes.
Right.
I picked this because, see how he is presented like he is a god. His face, his facial features
it's a very popular art style, yeah.
Yeah, and it's to deify people. Mao was drawn the same way, and they made bigger than life pictures of them because they became the deification of the communist religion. And of course, the hammer and sickle became the sign of this religion, even though the working man and the farmer died in the millions. You know, the famine that was the result in China probably killed 50, 60 million people. And that was the sickle.
Fight with the sparrows, right?
Yeah, if you were having a sickle, your farm was taken from you. There was no personal incentive anymore. You were robbed of everything, and peasants who had no idea how to farm were put on your property, and people just starved because no one. It's like what's happening in South Africa. It's what's happening in Zimbabwe today. They went and killed all of the Afrikaans and the Boer, and no one is able to grow anything, and so people starve, and you become dependent. Well, that's what happened. People just starved because of the farms. So the sickle didn't happen, and it did not spurn industry either. And the working people had no say in the government. They had less say over their lives, not more say over their lives. That hammer was used to keep them down. Communism, which concentrates power, is an exceedingly evil influence, an oppressive influence on humanity. And it's one of the great tragedies today that in universities and throughout academia, it's probably 95% of teachers and professors in academia are Marxists. They're extremely liberal. And they indoctrinate young people with this myth that capitalism, free enterprise does not work, because they don't work, and that Marxism and communism are more fair. And they believe it. And what they have not seen is what I've seen with my eyes, what I've experienced. And they've not witnessed East and West Berlin, East and West Germany, North and South Korea, Taiwan versus China back before enterprise zones. And so they're just clueless with their opinions. And they will guarantee the deprivation of freedom and of prosperity as a result. And it's it's the idea. I don't want to work, but I feel entitled, so I want what somebody else has. And they'll do the math and they'll say, well, Elon Musk is worth $500 billion. So if he could give everybody on the planet, like $1 million, and everybody be great. And you go, no, the math is he gave everybody on the planet like $23. And it would buy a couple of bags of popcorn. Well, wonderful. Now what are you going to do? If you stole all the money from every wealthy person in the world and redistributed it, it would be gone and useless, and there'd be nobody making any money to redistribute later, and it would last a week.
Right.
People just don't understand.
On a long enough timeline, it ends back up in the hands of the folks that are adept enough at creating things of value, or running farms, or absolutely. And that's why YAHOWAH's idea of the old belt, 50 years, and then everything, the land debts are wiped away, and land goes back to its owners and stuff like that, work because it keeps generationally, from generation to generation, of the best folks being able to create for society.
Yeah, it's the perfect deal for all of human history, including today, particularly in the Islamic world today and throughout Africa. Slavery has been part of civilization. Most civilizations were built on slaves. They all had a caste system. And the caste system, the slave, which is the lowest rung, but in a caste system, there's only one person that has free will. That's the king or Caesar or whatever you want to call it, but there's one person, the pharaoh. Only one person has free will. Everybody else is restricted. And the slave is at the bottom of the caste system. And those systems were pervasive because men are brutal in large nations and empires. And so, I was saying, I understand. Unfortunately, I'm a liberator. We know God began the first statement he wrote in stone is that, I am Yahweh, your God. I liberated you from slavery. And so God
Well, we can't have dead air, so I'm not even sure if we're still on or not. Okay, Yada's feed froze. We'll give him a second or two to see if he can come back, because y'all definitely don't want to listen to me talk the whole time. Yeah, hey, there's a rut row for sure. See if he pops back on, or if he's going to. We can do that. That wasn't bad. Okay. Well, I think we're almost at 2 hours, so appreciate everybody coming by. I think I'm just going to take and see if I can hit the outro here and if everything works. So, good night, everybody.